I really enjoyed the film, and I thought your character was very interesting as a villain because his company is like trying to solve hunger and create like sustainable food,
Yeah,
but his priorities are also clearly for profit. So, like,
yeah,
how do you ultimately view him? Because in real life, a lot of people would say the potential good outweighs the harm of this
yeah,
adorable, lovely giant red dog.
yeah. He has he has no good motivation. But I think to your point, when playing him, I had to kind of find something to connect to him, or you're just kind of playing an idea of a villain, you know? And I connected with the fact that he built this company. He's seeing it fall apart. It's all coming from anxiety, and I've had anxiety, so it's like I kind of connected with that, like, oh my gosh, my everything's about to fall apart, and so I kind of went that angle. But yeah, he didn't care about any of that, like bringing fixing hunger. It was all for it was all for profit, and he was the worst, but fun, very fun to play.
Yeah, and like a Texio is a very modern villain. It's not really like twirling your mustache.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
did you
yeah,
find most interesting about that role? And we see a lot of these real life tech CEOs kind of be a villain. So, were there any like
yeah.
real life inspirations? How'd that go?
I don't know about real life inspirations, but I do know that, interestingly enough, and I just thought about this now, because I've been saying with the message of this movie, what I love is that it's love that made Clifford big. And I feel like, you know, in social media, we're just breaking everybody down. Everybody's breaking each other down. And we're thinking, oh, if we scream at them, oh, that's going to bring change. And it's like, that's not going to bring change. That's not going to do anything. You have to give people space and love and understand and listen. And my character is like tech. My character is like this head of this tech company. And so much, and not that obviously all tech is bad because it's been used for good, but it's giving a lot of noise out there, and there's not a lot of voices of love and understanding, honestly.
Yeah, that is a really good point. And love brings about change, not
Yeah,
hatred and such.
yeah.
So John Cleese is in this film and
Mm,
obviously a comedy legend. I know you don't really directly interact with him much, but did you get to meet him on set or doing
yeah,
press?
I did. I did. And it was really hard not to fanboy because I was just like, I mean, I grew up on Monty Python, and they had, even though there was a broad comedy, they had such subtlety in their performances many times. And so I remember we were going to the van for the scene, and my scene was being shot somewhere else than his, but I was just kind of in the back seat just staring at him. And I'm sure he was like, "All right, man, settle down." But I was just like, "That's John Cleese. That's John Cleese." I mean, I was just trying to like not make a complete fool of myself.
Yeah, I bet you don't want to like just bring up a bunch of sketches constantly. It
Exactly.
had to be
He's like,
tempting though.
totally. Yeah, I'm sure you'd just be like, "Okay, let's talk about something else," because I've talked about that for like 50, 60 years.
So what's your relationship with Clifford? Did you read the books when you were a child? And was that something you were able to share with your daughter?
Yeah, I mean, I Clifford started, I think it was 1968, maybe, and I was born 1970. So Clifford's been around since I've been around. And then yeah, Clifford was always around with my daughter, and it's really, the movie obviously has that kind of message that I believe that I was telling you about, but in the books, there was just always something really cool about, here's this massive red dog walking around with all these kids, and nobody thought it was weird. Nobody was like, look at that freak. It was just like there was talk about acceptance. It was just like, yeah, that's Clifford. And that kind of, I think that message has really permeated through the books for decades.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see Clifford in this live action setting because
Yeah.
it makes you think about like just taking care of such a huge dog. Like we see, there's a scene where he pees in it, but my lord, how are you keeping that dog? Like it just blew. It makes you think
Totally.
about it in a whole different way.
A whole different way. And also, I have such an admiration for just special effects. I mean, it's how do you get a dog running through the streets of New York over bridges and all that kind of stuff and make it look real? I don't even, that doesn't even enter my framework. I don't even understand that at all. And, all that fun stuff up in the park and the ball and just the scope of him in New York City, which is just so crowded. I mean, that is quite a feat, huge feat.
There's a lot of great young actors in this film, and
Hmm.
I watched the Mysterious Benedict Society, and you have
Mm,
some very talented kids in that as well.
hmm.
How rewarding is it just working with such young talent?
It's really always, I'm just so impressed because I always think, gosh, I was definitely not that mature at that age. Like Darby, who plays the lead in Clifford, just really um, grounded and kind and talented, obviously. And I was just like, I think all I cared about was like the mall food court at that age, just like I just, I didn't have that kind of, I was just a little obnoxious. I don't know. I just really have a lot of respect for her and then the kids I work on Mysterious Benedict Society. It's really amazing.
Yeah, and in Benedict Society, you're playing two characters. You said in Hocus Pocus 2, you're playing two characters. What's your approach to, juggling multiple roles?
It's fun. I mean, the Mysterious Benedict Society was challenging, but again, it was this kind of thing where you had, playing twin brothers. It was very, the temptation is to go to like good brother, evil brother, rather than both broken, both misunderstood, both have stuff that's all stemming from. And you just kind of had to, I had to dig a little deeper, or again, I'd be playing kind of this superficial idea of them, Same with anything you do.
During the pandemic, it seems like everybody was rewatching The Sopranos, and you had an
Mm.
appearance in season 3, not as a gangster, although I think you could pull it off, but as a male
Mm.
nurse. What was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
Dude, I was so checked out during that. I was so like, first of all, how did I get here? And also, I remember thinking because I was like one of my first, because I mainly did commercials, and so that was my first kind of TV gig. And I remember I was that nurse oncologist giving chemo, and when I get nervous, my hands will shake. That tends to be kind of where my nerves will manifest themselves. And I remember holding that tube, and I'm like, oh great, I'm a nurse oncologist giving chemo, and my hands are going to shake violently on camera. And Uncle Junior is going to be like, look at this, look at this guy, look who's giving me chemo. So that was just completely petrified, petrified.
And you've done so much voice acting over your career, from like Thomas the Tank Engine, the Toy Story. Has your approach changed any over time? Were there like lessons that you learned doing that?
That's a good question. I think having done thankfully so much, and I'm really grateful for that. The more I do it, the more free I get with it. And it's because I used to have a lot of anxiety coming into it because being a physical comic actor, where so much is in the nonverbal, I was thinking, gosh, how do you transfer that into just a microphone? And then you just kind of learn to do the performance as you would on camera in front of a microphone, and then just trusting that will transfer through the microphone. So I think I just kind of freed up a little more and experimented and not judged myself. And that I think that just takes time.
I feel like I've seen you in just so many projects these past 2 years. You prefer to stay busy, I assume. What's your how do you figure out what projects to take on? Do you ever say no to anything?
That's a great, that's a chance. Well, it is a challenge to say no. It is a challenge. I mean, there have been other things that I have been kindly offered that I've passed on for various reasons. But when you really like something and believe in it, it's hard. It's really tough to say no. And there have been times that I've really liked something and I've had to say no just because I have a family but also having lived as an actor in New York where you're just desperate for gigs. It's like it's hard to let that go when we're freelancers. Artists are freelancers, and so it is really challenging to say no.
And then my last question, there's a lot of good physical comedy here. Was there a favorite scene for you to film in Clifford?
Favorite scene, man, I got to be honest. I would say most of them were my favorite thinking back, just because it was pre-COVID. You're just like, I took so much for granted. I mean, I would see people's faces. You wouldn't hear cut, and then everybody puts on a mask. I mean, when I was doing Mysterious Benedict Society for 5 months, I didn't see anybody's face. We'd never see anybody's face, and it's like I really took that for granted. But I would say the favorite is um, I had a really fun time working with uh, um, just Jessica Keenan and Alex Moffat in the laboratory, because Alex is obviously from SNL and Jessica, and we just had a really fun time. Anytime you can work with other comic actors and just kind of come up with silly stuff, that's just kind of playtime. That was really fun.